I'm going to show you how to turn these beautiful ingredients into this spectacular spiced vinegar called Salsa Bruja, perfect for seafood dishes. So this is a spiced vinegar, and you of course have to start with vinegar. I'm using an apple cider vinegar. That's very common. You could use distilled white vinegar, which is quite common in Mexico too, but I like the richer flavor that you will get out of apple cider vinegar. I'm going to pour that into a pan because we're going to heat this, but I'm going to heat it at half dilution. So I'm going to put 2 cups of water in with it. And then here's the thing that will probably surprise you. I'm going to add 2 scant teaspoons of salt to it. Now that'll sound like a lot of salt to go into this, but it's not. Because first of all, you're going to put all of these vegetables in there, and they all have to be seasoned. They will actually suck seasoning out of this vinegar. So we'll put our 2 teaspoons in there. And we're going to let that come to a simmer. Where the next step, of course, is to take everything that's in front of me here, vegetable-wise, and cut it up. I'm going to slice the onion into about 1/4-inch slices, halve the pieces of garlic. I'm going to thin slice these jalapenos, and I'm going to cut the carrots into little batons, about 1/4-inch batons. Got the carrots, the onions, the garlic, and the green chili, the jalapeno, now fitted into these half-liter containers. That's the size I think that works really well for this. Now we start going with all the spices and the herbs. So I've got some fresh thyme here. It really does work best with fresh thyme, but you could put a little dried thyme in there if you wanted to. And I'm just nestling these pieces down in just so that it looks kind of nice when we're finished with it here. So we'll put those down in there. Then we've got some arbol chilies, and I'm just going to lay those down in here with the thyme and just sort of nestle them all down. They can't obviously be sticking up over the top of this. I'm going to just kind of push it down in there. And then we've got a few bay leaves that are going to go in here. Now, I'll tell you this really interesting thing about where you find this. Whenever you go to a seafood market in Mexico, you will oftentimes find the salsa bruja. It's not really a salsa. It's more like just a flavored vinegar, but it's spicy, and it's got lots of herbs and spices in it, as well as the chilies to make it spicy. But if you go to La Nueva Viga, the large seafood market in Mexico City, is the 2nd largest seafood market in the world, second only to Tsukiji in Tokyo. And it's just lots of activity going on all over the place, but there's these wonderful little fondas, they would call them, the small restaurants that just ring that whole market. And you can go into those places and you can buy prepared foods, but you can also buy the salsa bruja there. Now, the last thing that I have to put in here are the 2 spices that I'm going to put. One is black peppercorns and the other is allspice. Now, if you just boil these things in water or in vinegar, you don't get very much out of them at all. So my recommendation always is to just coarsely crush them. I'm putting it into the Mexican molcajete, and then I am literally just going to lead my body weight into them here, and that's all I'm doing. The crushing is very gentle. I don't want to really make this into a ground powder or anything. I just want to crack most of them to release their flavor into the vinegar. Okay, I'm just about there. Now there's still some full ones. You could also do this, by the way, by putting them into a freezer bag and then using the side of a cleaver or the bottom of a pan to crush them. That works, and I've done that when I've been without a kitchen a number of times and I've had to prepare some food. Okay, that looks good enough for me. So I'm going to distribute them now between the two containers. And we've got our hot vinegar here, our hot diluted vinegar here with the salt. I can see some salt still undissolved right on the bottom of this, so I want to make sure it's fully dissolved. Now I want it to be hot, so I'm going to let it come to a gentle simmer here, but I put it over high heat so that'll go quickly. And then I'm just going to fill these two with it. Once they're filled, it'll take them a couple of days minimum to really get all of the flavors into the vinegar. But the cool thing about this is that you can make these up like a month or two ahead of time, and say during the holidays you want to give something really beautiful to people, something that they can play around with, using this in some seafood cocktails, or just a little bit of this just drizzled over some fresh crab is absolutely delicious. Making little tostadas that a lot of times people in Mexico will just take a little bit of the salsa bruja. Sometimes they'll put it into little tall containers that have a flip top on them, so that you can just sprinkle a little bit over your seafood cocktail tostadas, and that's really delicious too. Okay, so we've got a good steaming thing going on here, starting to simmer around the edges. That will be hot enough to make this thing work. So I'm going to now just pour it into the glass jars. Now, you may have a little extra. I have a little extra here. You can save that to use for something else, but I had filled it now nicely, and they just fit beautifully. I've got some lids to go on these things, and then you just let them set at room temperature for at least 2 or 3 days, but preferably a little longer than that. Clamping it down, I'm using these really fun weck jars here, and that's all there is to that. So we have our one that has been made a number of days ago, and it's starting to look different because you can see that the chilies have turned to their classic color of pickled jalapenos, but you've got the carrots in there giving it some sweetness, all the herbs, the spices, the chilies, 2 different kinds of chilies in there, and it's just like fireworks on your tongue. I hope you enjoy making some salsa bruja and using it in your own kitchen or giving it to others.